Greetings and welcome to Connecting with Intent Show. I'm your host Muhammad Awais. On this episode, we have a very special guest. He's the owner at Lakehurst Consulting, Daniel Pinkham. Please join me to give a warm welcome to our guest, Daniel Pinkham. Daniel, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mohammed. I appreciate being here. And as we said offline before, thank you for your patience in dealing with my crazy schedule. I'm happy to be here finally.
Let me start with this. Where were you? What happened? Who were you surrounded with that inspired you to do what you do today?
Sure. So I've been an independent consultant for the past 5 years. Prior to that, I was in industry for about 30 years. And while I was in industry, and this is heavy industry, chemical manufacturing and mining, among other things, I worked with various teams in the past roles I had to help improve the business, integrate improvements into daily operations, working with the people closest to the work. And that's very inspiring for me. Oftentimes we have experts that we ignore because we think we know better. And so in working with those teams to do continuous improvement, which is what I specialize in, I over time realized that not only do the big companies that I've been working with have a need for that, but every company really has a need to do continuous improvement and to look inside to do things better. The challenge is when it's tough to look inside yourself. It's much easier to have somebody with outside eyes come in and offer that perspective. So I thought there was a need, and I had a moment in my career where it made sense to develop a consultancy. And so 5 years I started my company, focusing on continuous improvement and also helping people with project management um, to make their businesses better. I do a lot of process mapping, so people have a visual on how they execute things, and that usually helps them figure out where things are going wrong. Um, so uh, so it was really that 30 years of working with teams and seeing, hey, small companies have a need. They don't have the bandwidth. They might not have the funding for a full-time person to help them with this, but they can probably, if the problem is big enough, they can probably, it makes sense for them. There's a return on that investment to bring in a third party to help them solve those problems.
What is your higher purpose in life?
You start off with the very high level uh, philosophical questions. Um, for me, it's really, in addition to trying to be a good a good father and husband, which is very important in a work environment. It's for me, it's to use my skills and abilities to help others get better, and that can take many different forms. In addition to, as I mentioned, being uh, a father and husband, it's building a career that intrigues me and hopefully helps others, but also provides for my family. And at the end of the day, if I'm doing continuous improvement, helping companies get better, there's a higher level piece to that, which if we're reducing waste for companies, we're reducing waste for the world. So we're being more efficient with resources. That includes people, and that if we're doing that smartly, the world's a better place.
What have been top three greatest challenges that you have had to overcome?
So as I mentioned, I went out on my own 5 years ago. That was a little bit of a shock. I had been a functional technical expert and leader inside of companies, but I had to build the business from scratch. So that included learning the basic skills of running a business, from bookkeeping and marketing and sales, et cetera, all that outward facing activity, because I can have the best solutions in the world, but if I don't have clients or there isn't a match with the client, then it's not going to help anyone. So that's all very important. I think another challenge for me has been though it may not seem like it, I'm a natural introvert. And so overcoming that introversion and being willing to go out and present to groups and engage in forums like this um, was not always something comfortable for me. So um, that's an important skill to have and a challenge, and learning to understand clients and their needs is important. even if it's something I can't help them with. I need to be able to digest what their needs are and see if I can perhaps find a different solution, a different provider to refer them to other people who can help them. And then the third challenge would be navigating the larger industry footprint landscape, if you will, and finding a place within it. As an independent consultant with a very small practice, there are a lot of big folks out there, and so you've got to do things that set you apart from the big four, big six consulting firms in the world. And that is really, in my case, to focus on what's that problem that client is trying to solve, and how do we do that in the most expeditious and cost-effective way, so that they can benefit from that as soon as possible. And maybe along the way, they're learning some skills too. So if I'm really good at my job, I'm kind of putting myself out of a job at that particular client if they're paying attention and learning what I bring to the table.
What is your greatest failure story? What did you learn and how did you recover from it?
This is a fun question. I'm an engineer by training, and I spent the first half of my career at chemical plants, and about half that time was in an engineering role. So we're trying to do things better with our manufacturing processes. And I was working at a plant that had we used elemental phosphorus, which is pretty hazardous stuff to deal with, as a raw ingredient to our process. And we were updating the storage of that material. And we wanted to do it as safely as possible. So we went out and talked to the experts in industry and within our own company, because we did have people who actually produced the phosphorus out of phosphate ore, and talked to them about what are all the best practices you do. And we did our best to integrate all those best practices in the design and construction of our new storage. The unfortunate reality was we had built a Frankenstein monster unwittingly, and it was very tough to make that operate. It was so safe that it was almost, you were unable to operate it. So we had to do some changes in how we ran it. So the lessons for me were, even if you're listening to the experts, try and figure out, usually the simplest way is best. So if we can figure out, even with all those constraints, what's most simple, let's do that. So looking for simplicity and improvements is very important. Minimizing the steps to get to that answer, another variation on the simplicity theme. So minimize steps and the waste that you generate as part of that process for a better outcome. And then finally, always keep that in the back of your head as you're dealing with the next project. So as I'm helping people with, maybe it's a business process, IT flow, because I do some of that as well, as in addition to manufacturing. It's what's most simple. Can we make it most simple to make it work the best and limit the opportunity for things to go wrong? And if we do that in everything we do, we usually have a much better shot for success.
What is the most impactful book you have read and what did you learn from it?
So being in the continuous improvement space, there are a number of very good ones out there. Ron Moore has a book, Making Common Sense Common Practice, which is very good. There's the Gold Mine, the Gold Mine and the Lean Manager by the Ballet family probably stands out in that genre, in addition to The Goal, which is another great book by Eli Goldratt. But the Ballet family, Michael, who's the father, and Freddie, who's the son, they created a novelized account of continuous improvement at a manufacturing company. And I think what's most important there is not only does it talk about the technical things you go through, but any improvement is change management and involves people. There's a human element. And this novel offered a perspective on how you consider that and include that as part of the improvement effort. So, what's driving the change? What's the burning platform, so to speak? So knowing that, knowing what the immediate next steps are to get better and explaining that to your team. And then from seeing the effort through the team's eyes, what's in it for me, the WIFM, and putting yourself in those positions and having those conversations so that everybody involved can help understand why we're going to do this big bunch of work to get better. What's in it for them at the end of the day to help overcome that organizational inertia to make the change. The reality is not everybody can do that, and but you want to make sure you find out pretty quickly for everyone's benefit who's on the bus and who's not, so to speak, so you can move forward effectively. So the Gold Mine is a great book to understand those concepts.
What are your goals for the next 12 months?
Well, as with any business, you're either growing or you're dying, right? So growth is key. So expanding the client base that I help, and offering my services to a broader range of industries. I've been pretty fortunate over the last 5 years. Although I came out of heavy process industries, I've worked since then in medical device manufacturing. I've worked in insurance. I've worked in hospitality. I've worked in defense, aerospace, agricultural co-ops. It's finding those other spaces that can benefit from what I offer is a key goal. I think there's also opportunity to offer some of my services as a product. So as you see, a lot of people are out there, since they have limited hours, how do you turn what you do into something that is standardized and a client could use on their own with maybe some limited guidance? And then I think the bigger goal is wherever I do have those engagements, make sure I'm having a positive impact on those clients and their employees, and the larger industry by making things better. So that's kind of that high level goal, that inspirational goal that helps drive me.
What advice you will give to younger yourself?
Oh, well, this one hits close to home because I have two daughters who are also one recently graduated from college a year ago and is working for a large pharma company in continuous improvement. So it's not just what would I give myself, it's what advice have I given my oldest daughter, and I think following close on her heels, my younger daughter, who's also an engineer but in a slightly different industry vertical. So it's things like being open to learning throughout your whole life, and being curious, asking lots of questions, realizing you don't know everything, and the way you do learn is ask people who are the experts working on it day in, day out. So being open to learning and adapting to new technologies. Look at what has changed in the last 2 years, let alone the last 10, from an AI perspective, and how that has changed the world in a very, very quick manner. So there's that learning and adapting, networking with other professionals in the field and seeking mentorship if you don't have the skill set. If you're at a large company, that tends to be a little bit easier because there are experts around that you can go find. If you're an independent, it's setting up those professional networks and reaching out within those networks and seeing if somebody's willing to help you. I would say be very open to getting your hands dirty. Go out and get that hands-on experience through internships or the first few positions out of school. And again, it's that applied learning, how the world really works versus what you learn as in an academic institution. That's very important. And then I would say, as a final piece of advice, you've got to develop the soft skills, the communication skills, very, very in parallel to your technical skills. You can't be successful in the industries I work in without having both. And so you want to make sure that you're working on communication, teamwork, collaboration. That really helps you execute projects, but it's also very helpful in trying to work with clients and land that next project with them.
How can we support you?
That's a great question. I think coming on and talking to you is a great base level of support. It helps extend the larger network of people who may have nagging business problems, nagging manufacturing problems. They think they've solved it, but they keep coming back. If people are out there listening, um, those are the kind of problems I help companies solve. So it's just being out there and thinking, hey, if I've got a complex technical problem that involves getting better, maybe Lakehurst Consulting is a place I can go to get that help. So there's promoting what I offer, and then there's helping connect with those potential clients out there who could benefit from my continuous improvement and project management experience that my company offers. So it's helping spread the word, if you will. That's the best way to help me.
What would you say about your guest appearance on the show?
Um, Besides making it extremely difficult for you to actually have this podcast today, which is all on me, I would say I've enjoyed the opportunity to do a little bit of reflection and share some experience and insight based off my prior 35 years in industry. I've appreciated the thoughtful questions that you prompted me to answer. That made me do some introspection and reflection, and I think hopefully it evolved into some deeper discussion points that got us beyond the superficial. And then I value the fact that you've got a platform out there that you're willing to offer to give me and others you interview an audience that we might not have access to. So I appreciate what you did to offer me this opportunity and to ultimately spend time with you today.
Thank you so much for your kind words. I really appreciate you for this. What closing thoughts would you like to share with our listeners?
I would say emphasize the importance of continuous improvement in both your professional life, but also your personal life. What can you do to be a better parent, spouse, uh, child? And think about how do you serve others as part of that. So think about that in both your personal and professional life. I would say as a reinforcement, if you're working on fixing problems, seek simplicity in problem solving and look for efficiency in the process. Oftentimes, the easiest way to do that is to list or map out the steps and figure out what's not working in those steps. And then ask yourself the question, what's causing me not to be able to execute? And oftentimes, it's taking that process apart, getting rid of the broken pieces or the waste, and then putting it back together that you come out ahead. I would also say look for opportunities to delegate and bring others in with experience to help you with your goals. As I mentioned, I'm not an expert in marketing, but I had to develop some expertise. So I went out and was able to connect with a coach who was very helpful in giving me approaches to extend my reach, extend my network to go identify clients. It might be something like getting a virtual assistant. It might be something like I'm going to get a fractional helper to manage my accounting. It can be anything like that. So look where you might be able to delegate. And I know it's tough when people get started, but as you get a little bit of size, a little bit of revenue coming in, that allows you to focus on what you do best in terms of serving the client. And then finally, I would say that helping others improve not only benefits them but benefits you. You get that back. It's the kind of the tenet that if you're giving the gift, you're really the one receiving it. And I think there's a lot of power in that, and that helps create a better environment, much positive place to be. And as I mentioned, in what I do, it not only benefits the individuals, the company, but if we're doing things right, there's some sort of world benefit to being more efficient in how we do things that at the highest level makes what I do helps the world be a better place. And if you keep that higher purpose in mind, I think that's very key.
Thank you so much, Daniel, for sharing your wisdom with us today. On the behalf of Connecting with Intent community and our entire team, we really appreciate you. This is Muhammad Awais. Until the next episode, all good wishes.